You didn't become silent to punish them. You became silent to save yourself. Because there is a point where your heart realizes that begging for tenderness feels like abandoning your own dignity. And you finally understand that your peace is not a weapon. It is protection. It is the first real act of love you have given yourself in a long time. And that choice comes after so many nights where you waited for a message. After so many mornings where you replayed the last conversation in your head. After so many times, you tried to explain your feelings in the softest voice possible, hoping they would finally hear what you were really saying. You were never asking for perfection. You were asking for presence. You were asking for consistency. You were asking for a love that didn't make you feel like you had to earn the right to be cared for. And when you didn't get it, you didn't immediately walk away. You stayed. You tried harder. You gave more. You compromised more. You told yourself they're stressed. They're scared. They don't know how to express it. You made excuses that sounded like empathy. But slowly those excuses started to cost you something. They started to cost you your confidence, your calm, your ability to relax and love. At first, you thought if you just explained it better, they would understand. So, you became gentle. You became patient. You became the kind of person who could turn pain into poetry just to keep the connection alive. But what you learned is that when someone is comfortable with distance, your emotions become a door they can close. And they close it not because you are wrong for feeling, but because feelings demand something real. Feelings demand accountability. Feelings demand closeness. And closeness is exactly what they fear when it becomes serious. So your silence began not in one dramatic moment, but in small moments of self-respect. You stopped sending that extra text. You stopped double messaging. You stopped apologizing for needing clarity. You stopped reaching for them when you were the only one reaching. And every time you chose not to chase, you felt two things at once: relief and grief. Relief because you weren't humiliating your own heart anymore. Grief because you knew you were finally seeing the truth. That love cannot be forced. And connection cannot be carried by one person alone. This is what people don't talk about. Detachment is often a last form of loyalty to yourself. It is what happens when your nervous system gets tired of being on alert. When you have lived too long in the uncertainty, when your body begins to associate their silence with danger. When your mind starts scanning every conversation for signs that you are about to be abandoned again. And one day you realize you don't want to live like this. You don't want love to feel like a test you are failing every week. You didn't stop caring. You stopped bleeding. There is a difference. You didn't stop loving. You stopped offering unlimited access to someone who treated your heart like something they could pick up and put down whenever it suited them. And you didn't do that because you are cold. You did it because you finally chose to protect what is precious. And what is precious is not your ability to endure. What is precious is your ability to feel safe, to feel chosen, to feel at home in someone's presence. And here is the part that breaks people. You can still miss them while you detach. You can still love the version of them you hoped would show up, while refusing to keep suffering for the version of them that actually did. You can still remember their good moments, their laughter, the warmth you felt when they were close, and still accept that those moments were not enough to build a life on, because a life needs consistency, not occasional tenderness. A life needs commitment, not convenient affection. Your detachment is not revenge. It is a boundary that says, I will not keep proving my worth to someone who benefits from my insecurity. It is a boundary that says, I will not keep shrinking my needs so you can stay comfortable. It is a boundary that says, I deserve love that doesn't require me to betray myself. And when you say that with your actions, not your words, something inside you starts to heal, because you are no longer abandoning yourself for the hope of being chosen. That is why your silence feels different to them, because they were used to your emotional availability. They were used to your quick forgiveness, your long explanations, your willingness to meet them halfway, even when they were standing still. And now they feel the absence of that effort. They feel the emptiness where your chasing used to be. And it confronts them with a truth they tried to avoid. That access to you was a privilege they didn't protect. But this isn't about making them uncomfortable. It is about making you safe. It is about rebuilding the part of you that learned to tolerate inconsistency. It is about learning that you don't have to fight for basic respect. It is about recognizing that if someone wants you in their life, they will not only enjoy your love, they will also honor it. They will handle it with care. They will not treat it like something that will always be there no matter how they act. So if you are sitting there wondering if you are being too harsh, if you are sitting there feeling guilty because you are no longer giving them the emotional supply they got used to, listen to me. Guilt is often the sound of your old patterns trying to pull you back. Guilt is what you feel when you stop overgiving, because overgiving became your way to feel secure. But security that depends on you losing yourself is not security. It is survival. And you are done surviving in love. You are allowed to protect your heart without hating them. You are allowed to step back without turning bitter. You are allowed to choose peace even if they don't understand it. Because the truth is, the right person will not punish you for having boundaries. The right person will not make you feel guilty for needing clarity. The right person will not require you to go silent just to be treated seriously. You became quiet because you finally heard yourself. You finally heard the part of you that whispered, "This is hurting me." And you decided to listen. And that is not weakness. That is strength. It is the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything. It simply chooses. It chooses dignity. It chooses peace. It chooses a love that does not cost you your self-respect. When you were emotional, they could cope with it. They could label it. They could minimize it. They could step back and say, "You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You're asking for too much," because your emotion, even when it was painful, still kept you connected to them. It still proved you were invested. It still confirmed that they mattered enough to move you. And as long as they could see you moved, they could feel safe in a strange way. Safe that you were still within reach. Safe that no matter how distant they became, your heart would still run after them. But the day you became calm, the day you became quiet, the day your eyes stopped begging and your messages stopped explaining, something in them started to panic. Not because you were cruel, not because you were playing games, but because your calm felt final. Your calm felt like a door closing without a slam. Your calm felt like the kind of goodbye that doesn't ask for a reaction. And that is the kind of goodbye an avoidant personality never prepares for, because it cannot be negotiated with. It cannot be softened with a small apology. It cannot be reversed with one sweet moment. They can handle tears because tears still speak. Tears still reach. Tears still say, "I need you to see me." Tears keep the relationship alive even when it is hurting. But calm says something terrifying. Calm says, "I have accepted what you are giving me, and I am choosing not to take it anymore." Calm says, "I will not fight you for love. I will not chase you for reassurance. I will not keep living in confusion just to feel close to you for 5 minutes. That's why they can't handle your emotional detachment, because your detachment is not loud enough for them to argue with. It doesn't give them a problem to solve. It doesn't give them a debate to win. It simply removes their access. And the moment access is removed, their comfort disappears, because they were comfortable in the imbalance. They were comfortable being the one who could pull away while you stayed emotionally available. They were comfortable knowing they could disappear and still return to the same version of you. The version that would soften, forgive, and open the door again. And then you became calm and they didn't know where you went. Your calm is not emptiness. It is self-control. It is emotional maturity. It is the discipline of someone who finally realized that reacting was only feeding the cycle. It is the strength of someone who stopped negotiating with a pattern that never changed. And that strength is what unsettles them because it looks like independence. It looks like self-respect. It looks like you could actually be okay without them. And an avoidant person often lives with one hidden belief. If you can be okay without me, then I have no control. And if I have no control, then I have to face my own feelings. So they start to poke at you. Sometimes gently, sometimes sharply. They ask questions that don't really ask anything. They send messages that feel like breadcrumbs. They show up with small attention, just enough to see if you will melt back into the old role. Just enough to see if you will react again. Because your reaction is the proof they crave, not proof that you love them. Proof that they still have the power to affect you. And when you don't react, they feel exposed. Because your calm makes them look at themselves. Your calm forces them to sit with the silence they created. And now the silence doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like loss. Now the distance doesn't feel like space. It feels like a cliff. Because distance only feels safe when you are sure the other person is still waiting. And they were sure you would wait. They were sure you would keep hoping. They were sure you would keep your heart open no matter how many times they shut theirs. But you didn't, and that is why the nervousness begins. They didn't know why they suddenly felt restless. They didn't know why they were thinking about you more. They didn't know why your name started appearing in their mind at the worst moments. Because what they are reacting to is not your anger. It is your acceptance. And acceptance is terrifying. Because it means the story they told themselves. The story where they can keep you without choosing you. The story where they can receive love without offering stability. The story where they can stay emotionally vague without consequences. That story starts to collapse. You see, when you were emotional, they could tell themselves they're just dramatic. They'll calm down. They'll come back. They always do. But when you are calm, there is no drama to blame. There is no storm to point at. There is just your quiet presence that no longer reaches for them. And that exposes the truth that the relationship was being held together by your effort, your patience, your overage. And once that stops, the reality becomes obvious. It was never equal. And maybe you feel guilty for this calm. Maybe you sit there thinking, am I being cold? Am I being unfair? Am I becoming someone I don't recognize? But listen closely. Calm is not cold. Calm is clarity. Calm is what happens when you stop placing your emotions in the hands of someone who keeps dropping them. Calm is what happens when you stop turning your heart into a project that needs to be managed.